In this next part of the .NET MAUI crash course, we are going to learn all about navigation. So how to go from one page to another page, and also how are we going to get that complex monkey object into that other page and show all the details there. As you might have already noticed in the previous videos, is that we're using Shell. Now, if you've been working with Xamarin Forms before, then you might already know about Shell, and it has all the concepts that you know and love from there. But, the built-in dependency injection is now a thing, of course. But other than that, you should be able to use everything that you already know and love. If you're not familiar with Xamarin Forms, Shell is like your opinionated way on how to set up an app. So it helps you very much with arranging your visual hierarchy. It's very easy to put things in a flyout menu, so your hamburger menu, or in the tab bar, whether it's on the bottom or in the top. So it can help you with all these kinds of things, and it can really help you, especially if you're building your first kind of apps. But if you want to do all kinds of advanced stuff, that is totally possible as well. Or there's the other way around where you just rip out all the shell stuff and you start with a completely blank page. That's still a possibility as well. But I'm focusing on kind of like the beginner developer here who hasn't worked with Xamarin Forms and .NET MAUI a lot yet. So we're going to focus on Shell, and in Shell you have kind of like the URL type navigation. So all the navigation happens through kind of like a URL. You'll have to register your pages as being a URL, and then from there you can easily say, hey, go to this page or go to one page up. We'll see all that in the video in a little bit here. But you have kind of like two types. You can, whenever you use the URL type, you can go with like the parameters, so the query parameters, which can hold like very basic types like strings or integers or that kind of stuff, and you can just pass along an ID. So imagine our monkey finder app, and you would just pass in the ID of the monkey. So you would go to monkey details, question mark, ID is 1. And it would go to the page and it would paste in that one, basically, you providing that, and we would go out to the database and grab the monkey that has the ID of 1, right? That is one possible route. But if you already have all the monkey objects like in your main page, like we have in our application, basically, we've set that up in the previous video, then you have all the details already in JSON. So why would you go out to the database, grab the whole details again? That will just be a waste of time and compute cycles, right? So you don't want to do that. So what you can also do is provide the whole complex object. So this whole monkey object, we can just provide that through a URL kind of navigation in Shell, and we can catch that complex object in our view model on the other side in our details, and then we can show that in a page. So that's exactly what we're going to implement on this video. All right, so let's go over to our screen here and let's go crunching some code. Just to be absolutely clear, the episode numbers for this course and the part numbers of the workshop do not really align. So just to be perfectly clear, you want to go to part 3, navigation right here. You want to open that up and open that solution in Visual Studio. So I've already done that. You can see it right here. And this is the exact state where we left off for like the previous part, right? So, but now, like I already mentioned, with the flick of a button, you can just say, hey, I want to run this code, but now on my Android emulator, right? On my Pixel, the emulator that we've set up in an earlier video. So whenever I do that, we have the exact same code base. I didn't change a thing, and we are suddenly running an Android app on the Android emulator. Now, how cool is that? This is the power of .NET MAUI at work. And you can see the exact same code. This is what we implemented in the previous part. Get monkeys, and we will get a list of the monkeys. We're fetching that from a remote URL, deserializing the JSON, and here we are. Now, what we're going to implement now is that we're going to tap on one of these monkeys, and we're going to view the actual details in the details page that we've, seen here in our directories, at least in our solution, that it's there, but we need to fill in the blanks, right? So that's exactly what we're going to do. Now, before we get to it, I thought of a little hint, a little thing that I should have maybe mentioned for the setting up the Android emulator thing. If you're going to attach a physical device, you totally can. So just get your Android phone out, connect a physical device. But what you need to do, it will give you some nice options, is go over to the menu here, and you want to go to the Settings app, and it kind of like differs on like which flavor of Android you're running, but you can go all the way down. You can go to the about, so the about all the Android things. Again, you scroll all the way down and you have this build number here. And if you tap this a good number of times, it says now no need, you're already a developer, but it will start a countdown from 5 and it will enable developer mode. And if you go back here, then you will see, I think somewhere here in system, advanced, and you will have these developer options. And these has all kinds of options to stay awake whenever it's connecting to USB so that you don't have to wake it up all the time. And you can do a lot of options here. But also this is needed whenever you want to attach your physical device, else it won't pick up in the run menu there. So this is something that you need to do. Just a quick tip I thought of while recording this video. So make sure to do that. For the emulator, it's not strictly necessary, but it can still provide you with a couple of nice options that you might want to have. And now let's get into that implementing of the navigation. Now, the first thing we want to do is here, this is our main page. So in the previous video, we've implemented like this whole layout, this whole UI that you want to have. And here we're in the data template, right? So this is the representation of one monkey. So that's that little image on the left, and then like the name, I think, on the right side, right? So we want to have this, and here we have a grid and a frame. And in this frame, we're going to add something that is called a gesture recognizer. So here, frame.GestureRecognizers. We can just do that. And inside of this, you have a couple, actually. You have, what do we have? Gesture recognizers. We have a click, a drag and drop, a pinch, a swipe. So you can detect all these kinds of gestures here. But we want to have the tab gesture recognizer. So we will set up that one. You can actually do multiple. So you can do, depending on what the user is doing, you can trigger different things. And what I'm going to do actually here is implement the tabbed. So I'm going to do this with an event. So technically, if you've been watching the previous video about MVVM, you can try to do this in a command as well, but I'm going to go for the tabbed right now. And this will just generate a new event in our code behind. So let's go over to that. And here you can see this is just a regular tapped event, right? So event arcs, all the things as if you would do a click on a button or maybe some other thing that you've been used to from another .NET project. Now, don't be frightened. I'm going to copy in a little bit of code again here. So here we are. And let's have a look at what this does. So I'm going to leave the red squigglies. I'll fix that in a minute. So actually what we're going to see here is we're going to retrieve the actual monkey object from a visual element. That's like the highest in the hierarchy of .NET MAUI elements. It's a visual element and everything inherits from that. So we're just going to treat this as a visual element, the sender, because that's going to be like the sender is going to be our frame, right? That's probably going to be our visual element in this case. And then we're going to get the binding context. Now that's kind of interesting. The binding context is set to, well, in this case, the view model, right? But that's for the whole page. And if you remember from the previous video, the binding context for just one item is going to be the monkey, right? So for this item template, it's going to be that one monkey. And if you set like the binding context, which will happen automatically within a collection view for this item template, then the binding context will be the same for this grid, this frame, this grid, this image. All the descending children will be of the same binding context here. So that's why we can just reach out and get that binding context. We're going to cast that or try cast that as a monkey. If it's null, we're going to return. So that's not, you maybe want to inform the user, although this never should really happen. And then we're going to do the actual navigation. So we're going to do await, and we're going to call on shell.current. So that's kind of like the current instance of our shell object. And we're going to say go to async. And this is interesting here. We're going to specify like the URL, so the page that we want to go to, in this case, the details page. We have a true, which will actually animate a little bit while we're doing the navigation. You can set it to false and it will just go to that new page. And here we can specify like the values that we want to put in here. And you can do a full dictionary and it will automatically serialize and deserialize the thing for you. So here we can just say new dictionary, string, and object. And we're going to say this key, so the key is going to be the monkey, and we're going to put in the monkey actual object. So this will deserialize all the properties, will actually serialize all the properties of that monkey, make sure that it gets transported over to our details page, and we can catch it on the side of the details page. Now this is going to be awaited, so we are going to have to make this async, and now everything is happy, and this should trigger it, but we are not quite ready yet because we have a few other things to do. Let's go over to our Solution Explorer, and I'm going to go to the View Models right now. And here we have the monkey details view model. We've seen that before, but it's completely empty right now. So what we want to do here is make this also a public partial, and we need to make it a partial because we're going to use the community toolkit MVVM, right? And that needs the partial class to do all kinds of source generation, as we already know. So we're going to do that, and we're going to add a new constructor, which is technically not really necessary, I think, because we're not really going to do anything here for now, but you know, it's good to have. And we're going to then create a observable property. You still knew that, right? We need to do an observable property, which is going to be monkey of the type monkey, and we're just going to call that monkey. There we are, save it, and boom, we have our observable property that we can use for the data binding, as we've seen in the previous video. Now, one thing that we need to add is a way to actually map our incoming monkey object to this monkey property now. So what we can do for that is we have this attribute, and we can put that on top of the class, query property, which is built into .NET MAUI, especially for shell. And this needs a couple of parameters, right? So first we need to tell it that it needs to map it to the monkey property. So we just need a string to say like, hey, we're going to map this to, well, the monkey property, which is kind of like, you know, it's not really here because it's going to be generated, but the IntelliSense already knows it's here. So we're going to map whatever is coming into the monkey property here. And we're going to get that from the actual monkey key, right? So that this is the key in our dictionary that we specified here. So we specified this monkey right here, and that's coming in here, and it's going to map it to the property of name of monkey. Now this is all strings, and you know it's monkey and monkey, so this is maybe not the greatest naming, but I'm sure you can kind of like figure it out and do it with a couple of different names. You can also avoid the magic strings here by also doing things like name of monkey and that kind of things. But you know, this is just to make it a little bit clearer that this is the actual key in the dictionary here. Now this is actually all we need to get the monkey over to our details view model. So it will automatically for you be serialized, be deserialized, and we have it here in our view model. So now kind of like the last two things that we need to do is actually implement the UI to actually show something of these details and register the root for this, because we need to register like where do we find this monkey details. So let's go into that, and first we're going to go to our Solution Explorer again, and now I'm going to go to the views and I'm going to go to the details page, and you can see here there is completely nothing yet. So let's actually get something here from the main page.xaml because I hate typing. So let's get this view model again, and we're going to get this data type, and actually let's get this title in here as well. We need these three things to make it show up nicely, and I'm just going to paste it in here. So little repeat exercise here. The XML namespace is a shorthand for this whole namespace right here. So this is monkeyfinder.viewModel. So if we look here, we have this namespace monkeyfinder.viewModel, right? So that's why this is there. And then we can use this view model in our XAML instead of having to type this whole thing all the time. Now this X data type is especially so that the IntelliSense will know about what the type that we are going to use here. So our monkey's view model, although in this case it has to be the monkey details view model, right? So let's change that so we have the right one. And our title we're actually going to set now to our monkey dot name, so that we get the name in the title, right, for our little application. And you can see it already did it with the IntelliSense, so that is great. Now I'm going to again bring in some code here. So let me get in a little snippet of code, and we're going to build that out together. So here you can see a scroll view, and that is a element that is, you know, make sure that whenever something goes over to like your viewport, you can automatically scroll it. If you do not, you know, if it all fits in the screen, because we have all kinds of screen sizes, it will just stay put. But if it goes over, then you can automatically scroll through that. So that's what the scroll view does. Now we have the vertical stack layout, so that will align things like vertically. It will stack everything, all the children in here. It will stack that vertically automatically for you. And then we have this grid with 3 columns, which is like equal here. The auto is the middle, and then equal there. So that's kind of like how it layouts. And we have 2 rows, one of 160 and one of auto, which will probably fill up the rest of the stuff here. And here we still need to do the background and image of the monkey. And here we need to do the details of the monkey. So let's focus on the first part, and we're going to bring in again a little bit of code here that you can all find in the repository README. So let's bring this in, and there is something funky going on with my formatting here, so forgive me while I try to format this for you. We have this image, we have this frame, and we have a box view. So let's see how that all kind of fits together. And this box view, you can see it does a grid.columnspan3, so that goes over the whole length of our screen. It will have this yellow background, and it will have the full 160 because we had this row of 160 height, right? So we have this nice little background of our primary color. We'll get to styling later, don't worry. Then we have a frame, and this will be in our row span number 2. So that will span two rows, so like this, and that will have a column of, it will live in the first column, and then we have a little bit of a margin. So the column is the middle one, right? This is the one. So you will see in a little bit visually how this all comes together. It's a little bit cryptic right now. It will have a width request, a height request, so it will be a square one. And do some other things. And this is kind of like the interesting thing, is clipped to bounds and corner radius. So if you know a little bit about how this works, this will be a circle and it will be clipped. So the corners will be clipped off. So what we are probably going to see, because this frame isn't closed, right? We can see the box view is self-closing here, but the frame is not. And inside of that, we have this image. So inside this frame, which is going to be clipped, we'll have this image. So probably we're going to see a rounded image of our monkey, which is going to be pretty amazing. Now for the image, the height request again, we are going to set this to the center, and we're going to set this to the source of our binding monkey.image. So it already knows about our monkey property in the view model, and it knows that it has an image, and we can just get the source from there. So an image is just, you can load images from URLs, from local images, if that's what you want, from basically all kinds of things. That is what that does. So now we have all of this. Let's also add something for our details. So this is living inside of our grid, and the grid is needed to make that fancy layout, right? Like I said, we'll see that in a little bit. We kind of like have overlapping visual elements here to make it look nice. This is definitely something that you need to get in your fingers. That's a Dutch expression, maybe? I don't know. You have a little bit of practice with this to get all the layouting right and do the fancy stuff. I'm not the best designer, so I'm happy this workshop was created by James. But it will look nice and fancy, and it will take a little bit of practice to get it that way. Now for the details, we have this right here. So let's bring in a little bit for that as well. And this is just going to be like the extra details for the rest of our monkey. And this is again a vertical stack layout, so it will do all the things underneath each other. We have a little bit of padding, a little bit of spacing, and we have a couple of labels here. With again some styling, which is going to come later, and we're going to bind all the text here to the details, to the location, and to the population. Now there is something specific going on with these bindings. If you look at this one, the population, you can see that this that says binding, but it also does comma, and then you can say string format. Now this is really cool. You can do inline string formatting, and there's a couple of other options that you can do with bindings, but string formatting is one of them. And you can just say, hey, I want to have this single quote, because for the text we already do double quotes, so you want to have the single quotes here. And you can say population, colon, space, and this will just be a static string. This will be like literally what's going to appear on screen. And then whenever you do this brackets here and a 0, you can have this monkey population is in there. So we can now say population, semicolon, and we will have the population here, the number. Instead of having to have two labels, one with population, making sure they align properly, you can just do this with the string format. So that is pretty great. Now, I think our UI is pretty much set up as well, so that's neat. Kind of like the last thing we need to do now is set up our route so that we can actually get to this page, right? Right now, if I would run this, you would get a runtime exception because it doesn't know where to go whenever we call here to go to async. It doesn't know how to find the details page. So let's set up that. Now, to do that, we're going to need to go to the Solution Explorer again, and we're going to have to go to the app shell XAML.cs. In fact, you can do it everywhere, basically, as long as it's like early in your app lifecycle. But I think it makes most sense to do it here in the app shell. That's where the thing is going to be created. So here, let's just do routing, which is also a shell thing, routing.register root. And we can say name of details page, and we need to do that also for type of details page. So what we're doing here, we're registering this through the same name and the same type. But you can totally have a different name and a different type if that's what you want. If you want to call this monkey details page and you want to navigate to monkey's details page like that, but you still want to go to a type of details page, totally up to you if that's what you want. If you want to use a different naming scheme here, but I think it kind of makes sense to use the same name and the same type for things. And then also you get rid of like magic strings and you can just use name of and those kinds of things. So this just works, but it's up to you if you want to actually follow this kind of like pattern for this. And another thing that we need to set up is our dependency injection, because what we have now is we're going through our main page, we're going to our shell current go to async, we're going to set our dictionary monkey, which is all fine. It's then going to go to our monkey view model, is going to populate this thing right here. It's going to know about that. But what we still don't have is here in our details. I need to go back to my view, details page, and then the code behind. And I need to here specify the monkey details view model, and we need to set that up to our binding context, right? Because else if we don't do that, we're not going to see anything. So let's set this, and we want to do it through dependency injection so that it all lines up. So now I have the constructor injection set up. It will catch our view model. It will assign that to the binding context. Now I need to go to my Solution Explorer again, go to my MAUI program where all the registration lives for our other services and view models, right? And I need to add these transients ones. So add transient, which is going to be our monkey details view model and our details page. And again, we want to do this at transient because so that you get a new instance of these pages every time. Now, actually, let's just run this thing on Android. I'm going to run this thing on Android again, and we should see now the same screen that we've seen before with our list of monkeys, but now we should be able to tap on it and actually go to the details page that we've just set up to see all the details of our monkeys that we have entered here. So let's get the monkeys. This should still work. We didn't change anything in this regard. So here we are. And let's take one, I don't know, let's take Henry from Phoenix. And if we click that, we get to our details page where, here you see the kind of like complex layout with the bar here behind and this rounded image that I've been talking about, and kind of like overlaps with the top bar and like the bottom one where you have all the rest of the details. And here we have the title that we set to monkey.name, if you remember correctly. So here we have a full-blown details page for our monkey. How amazing is that? So we just implemented all of this. Be proud that you made this work. And we can stop this and we can still run this on our Windows machine and just click boom, Windows. We're going to have to wait for this to build a little bit, and then our Windows app will come up, which will have the exact same functionality. Okay, here it is. Our app is coming up. It's been built successfully. Let's see. Come on, you can do it. Yes, here we are. And whenever we do get monkeys, we see the little loading indicator. We're going to get our actual monkeys. Let's do the cappuccino monkey right now. And you can see here that we have the same detail page, but now running on Windows as well. I didn't change anything, just flip to the Windows target and boom, we have the same thing running on Windows. All right, be proud of yourself. You've done well. You've implemented navigation. You've learned about a great deal of layout stuff for .NET MAUI as well, how to create fancy layouts, well, a little bit fancy layouts. This is only just the beginning. How to register roots in shell, what shell exactly is. You've learned a ton today, so be proud of yourself. Go out, buy ice cream, and celebrate for a little bit. But, we're not stopping there. We have for the next video on the agenda how to access platform features. So we're actually going to use the location sensor, so the GPS or however the device determines what your location is, and it's going to find the closest monkey, because if you remember correctly, for all the monkeys we have a location with GPS coordinates, and we're going to find the one that is closest to us. So make sure to stay tuned for the rest of the course. In fact, let me help you with that right now. Here is the next video in this course that you might want to check out, and here is the playlist for the full course. And of course, make sure that you're subscribed with this button right here. See you on the other side.